Transformers Rise of the Beast, Transformers 7 had a $60 million opening. This is on par with many of the other Transformers movies. It had a $60 million domestic opening and a $110 million internationally, everywhere except the US and Canada. So that's roughly $170 million opening weekend. Did these numbers surprise you at all for Transformers Rise of the Beast, and have you seen it already?
Yes, so I've seen the movie. I was very high on the movie, but I might make a video talking about how I kind of just fanboyed the movie. It was probably one of the few times I've actually fanboyed on a movie and realized, yeah, maybe this movie really wasn't all that good. But if we're talking purely box office numbers, the numbers actually surprised me just a little bit because it was on the high end of the projections. But I also think that the international opening is actually really good considering that these Transformers movies do extremely well overseas. I think the $200 million budget might hurt this movie, but I think it can at least meet 500 to 600 million. It really just depends on all the competition that's coming out this week and what movies get a big release in China or in various countries. But Transformers has always been a staple internationally. I mean, if the Michael Bay movies can be those big box office successes, I can't see why this movie wouldn't. No matter how quality this movie is to anybody.
I surprisingly liked it, but that's only because the bar has been set so low for all of the recent Transformers movies, except for Bumblebee. I was pleasantly surprised by Bumblebee, had a great time watching it, and when they said they're going to do a Bumblebee sequel, I was like, yes! And then they said, yeah, Haley Steinfeld and John Cena not going to be in this film. So I was glad that Michael Bay has been driven from the series. I love Michael Bay early work, but the last 10 years or so, Michael Bay is. I was pleasantly surprised. The director was Stephen Caple Jr., who directed Creed 2, and he's a longtime TV director. Stephen Caple Jr. kind of stepping into the big blockbuster range of cinema directing. So yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by it. And the biggest thing, though, I was so happy that the Transformers were actually transforming again. Like, you could actually see body parts moving and going around and like the whole sound effect thing. Like the last couple of Michael Bay Transformers movies, they were morphing more than they were transforming. Like, it sort of looked like, in Avengers Endgame, Tony's suit, stopped moving and it was just sort of morphing in one amorphous blob to another. That's what the Transformers are doing, and okay, fine, Iron Man, you can nanoparticles all you want. But Transformers, it's in the freaking name! They're Transformers! They're not Mighty Morphin Power Rangers! They're Transformers! The whole point is that they're robots in disguise, so, yeah, the whole Beast Wars thing is a little bit after my time. I was a kid when the Generation 1, the original OG Transformers cartoons were on. I was 8, 9, 10, 11 years old when the first 2 seasons of Transformers came out. So those were sort of my Transformers that I loved because they kind of looked at the cars and trucks that were out at the time. Yeah, Beast Wars where they're transforming from a robot into a robot that looks like a gorilla. Kinda. With robot hair. Yeah, that part kind of lost me. But yeah, I actually did kind of like this film. Now you said you kind of fanboyed out over Transformers: Rise of the Beast. What did you mean by that?
The bar being so low for those Michael Bay Transformers movies, I think anything that was unlike those movies, I was going to enjoy. And I also loved Bumblebee, and that was also a really big surprise. And I think that having this movie be primarily all about the Transformers and just being a very simple, standard story, I thought actually worked. But I think I fanboyed out on because I know a lot about the Transformers and like you that I enjoyed the original show and the Transformers the movie, also from the 80s, and just seeing cool things like that. And I mean, I still agree with a lot of positives I give it. I think it's more of a generic movie at its core, and I was given it. And this is the same thing I did with Godzilla versus Kong, where it's like, okay, if you nail the characters of Godzilla versus Kong and it's epic and cool, then I'm going to give it a really high rating, even though everything else really isn't all that good. So, uh, yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat here. I want to make a video, but I don't know if I want to really humble myself that low and be like, hey guys, you know this video that did really well? Yeah, scratch all that. This movie ain't that all good. My review doesn't matter anymore.
You do have 2,400 views on that video, so that video is performing really well.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Ramos, the leading actor from In the Heights. This is a really, really talented guy. I haven't seen a ton of his work other than In the Heights, but he did such a great job as the lead character in that musical. To see him playing the lead character in a Transformers movie, running from robots, when I know he's capable of singing and dancing, it kind of seems like a lot of underwhelm, but he was so good playing the big brother, playing the dutiful son to his mom, that he was able to bring like an emotional grounding to the Transformers movies that I think have largely been missing. Since then, there hasn't been a whole lot of human emotion in, at least on the personal level, on the ground level, and I thought Anthony Ramos did a great job bringing that to the role. Like, what did you think of him in that role?
I actually thought he was great. I think that he really committed himself to this role. And I was really excited to see him be cast in this movie because, like you said, In the Heights, Hamilton, he is extremely talented. But this movie does come off as a paycheck movie. It just does because you know what he's capable of. But when you see like how committed he is to his performance and how he interacts with these CGI robots and you feel like he's actually talking to them, it's really convincing. And I think he did a really good job and he has a lot of charisma and he just put a lot more effort into this movie rather than like Mark Wahlberg in those last two Transformers movies where he got paid like $50 million and he just didn't really care. I also really enjoyed the other lead of the film, Dominique Fishback. She was excellent in the movie as well. I really thought that her and Anthony Ramos' chemistry together was really good. I also really enjoyed what they had with their characters. Like they didn't try to force a typical love relationship that normally happens in these movies, and I thought her character was cool. What'd you think of her?
She is a really talented actress. I loved her in The Deuce. I didn't like her as much in this film, though. I thought it was a little bit forced. She's a very talented actress, but the thing I really did like, though, also, as you were saying, was the chemistry between the two of them. The fact that they didn't shoehorn a romance into a Transformers movie, which kind of seems like a requirement in some way, shape, or form. But, like, for example, the Mark Wahlberg Transformers movies, when they shoehorned a romance in, and they were literally having to describe Texas state law as to why it wasn't illegal, I was like, okay, can't we just make the character a few years older, or just skip the romance entirely? Like, if you're having to name state laws as to why it's not illegal, they're forcing something in a little bit there. They didn't end the fact that they weren't trying to force something like that in this film. If you remember Shang-Chi, that also was a film where they had a female lead in Aquafina, where they didn't go for the romance end. They were just friends the entire time. And that was actually kind of one of the things that they were pointing out was, they were pointing out like, oh, are you together? Like, I don't know, we're friends. So I like that we're getting those types of relationships being experimented with a little bit in films of this size, because normally it's just, you're right, cookie cutter, same thing. And at least they cast two really talented actors as leads in this role, and it was fun too. That was the other thing. This is a fun film. It's a fun. I think that kind of got away from the franchise a little bit, like when they did the first Marky Mark one, where it was basically 9/11 but Chicago. Like I liked Transformers 3, but 4 was, and then when you have Anthony Hopkins in a movie and he's monologuing, and Anthony Hopkins doing a monologue can't save the film, that's when you know Transformers 5 is that bad. So the fact that we brought the fun back to Transformers, I love, and also I love Bumblebee the movie, but Bumblebee the character I think is really kind of played out. So the fact that Bumblebee gets killed off halfway through, in my seat, I was like, Yes! Bumblebee is gone! He looked like the Vision after the Vision was killed in Avengers Infinity War. I love the Vision, so I was like, we know it's coming, but yeah, and then, he gets brought back to life. But hey, say I love you. Had my moment where Bumblebee was killed off, but yeah. I thought that was pretty brave though, when you take a sequel, it's a sequel to Bumblebee, and they kill off Bumblebee in the sequel. That's actually pretty brave, and the fact that, they gave the lead Transformers role to Mirage, with Pete Davidson doing the voice is great. Did you like Pete Davidson in the role?
Yeah, I can't lie that I really like Pete Davidson. I think he's really funny and down to earth. So I thought he was really perfect as this character. I didn't realize how funny he was going to be as this character, and it took me a little bit to know it was him because I had no idea who's in this movie besides the two leads and Peter Cullen as Optimus Prime. So it was really cool to see him just be himself, but also be the character. And I think Pete Davidson rides that fine line, and he was really good in this movie. And I gotta agree that Bumblebee being killed off right away was a massive shocker. Like everybody in my audience just lost their mind. Like I think people were crying in my auditorium. Like I feel bad. People love Bumblebee, so
Kind of felt like I was bathing in the tears of all the kids that were crying over the death of Bumblebee. It was like, yes! Bring on the tears! Bring on the tears! Are you not entertained? The other box office news from this weekend was Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse took home $55 million. Very close second place. Very good hold for being in the second weekend. What did you think are you surprised that Spider-Man is performing so well in weekend number 2?
Uh, I am a little surprised, and the only reason why I'm saying that is because the competitive market in the box office right now is so hot. Like, if you look at all the box office numbers comparative to previous years, I mean, this is some of the best. I mean, this is better than pre-pandemic times, which is awesome for theater going. And I think seeing it do as well as it is a little shocking. And I think next week, or at least this weekend, it's going to do really well as too. But the grosses on like Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays are also really good. When normally those days you get a couple million here and there. If you're a bigger movie, you might get like 5 million. But each weekday gross is doing extremely well for this movie. And with school coming out in this week, next week, or whatever, like this movie is going to do red hot.
We're seeing word of mouth as to why Spider-Man is really kicking in and having such a really strong second weekend as well.